Computer. All right, peace, love, and prosperity to all of humanity and on Midgard, planet Earth. This is AMPAG treaty class, Sunday treaty classes, completing the rights of Indigenous peoples that we went over last week. It was a great discussion. It was some good learning. We established that it's not exactly an evil operation, or it's not at all an evil operation, despite all the misinformation that's been out there regarding it being some sort of Illuminati New World Order operation in which everyone is going to get put into FEMA camps. One thing that I forgot to mention about in regards to that is the UN soldiers, right? The guys with the blue helmets, with the UN letters on the front of it. People are so afraid of those people. We're under this misinformation and misunderstanding that they're the ones that's going to come knocking at your doors to snatch you up and take you into these FEMA camps. Well, these are actually peacekeepers. That's what they are. They're peacekeepers. You've got two forms of, let me share the screen. You've got two forms of courts, two different types of courts. You've got the International Court of Justice, and then you also have the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, right? So it's all based in due process. So, example, we submit a ministerial decree from consular court, a judicial order from consular court to the colonizers. They ignore it. So I'm going over due process, right? So they ignore it. They act as if we didn't send anything to them, right? And so then now the Minister of Foreign Affairs comes in and deals with the mediation aspect of it, diplomatic relations. They ignore him. Okay, fair enough. That's when we now have our consul general, equivalent to an attorney general. That's when he comes in to further mediate the situation, but also at the same time reminding the foreigners, and keep in mind that could be the United States or whoever, any foreign state, but in this case we're talking about the United States. He comes in and he makes a different attempt at mediation, which in this case it's arbitration. But his approach is to mediate while at the same time remind them that consular court is coming up next if you don't adhere to these orders. So the United States now ignores him, tells him to go kick rocks. That's where consular court now comes in, right? This is where now we come into the phase of adjudication. So we've exhausted all measures. We did mediation, arbitration, adjudication. So now they ignored everybody. They ignored the Minister of Foreign Affairs. They ignored the Consul General, and now they're ignoring the Kazi, the Minister. They're ignoring Consular Court, the orders in the adjudication, the judgment that came from Consular Court. What do we do next? Okay, so now when Consular Court fails, then we move on to petition the United Nations, right, to come in and assist us with the belligerence of the United States. And in that process, we bring in, they would bring in the International Court of Justice. So the court, so now we take them to court, the International Court of Justice, their judgment, their verdict, they ignore. They say, well, to hell with them as well. So they told the ICJ to kick rocks as well, right? So now the final stage, the absolute final stage, is the International Criminal Court. And that's where those judges, they would adjudicate against the head of state in his personal capacity, in his personal and official capacity, and up to even removing him or her from their office, from their post. So Joe Biden will no longer be the president, right? If he ends up in the International Criminal Court, he would then be removed from the office of the presidency of the International organization called the United States. But then now, what if they're belligerent with that, and they want to continue their operations as if nothing happened, as if the United Nations hold no power, as if Consular Court holds no power. They're just being extra belligerent, and they're still going to continue on with their belligerence. Well, that's where the peacekeepers come in, right? Now the peacekeepers got to come in and forcibly remove Joe Biden or whatever, whoever the head of state may be. I said all that to make that point, that the blue helmet soldiers of the United Nations are not here to remove people from their homes and take them into FEMA camps and concentration camps and slavery camps, etc. They're there to remove belligerent governments, even if at that point it may take some form of calls for arms, war, and they're sanctioned by 193 member states. So, 103 nations, and also their non-member states, may petition the United Nations to deal with this matter. And so, through the authority of all the states combined, they have extended their authority to the United Nations to activate their foot soldiers to go in and bring about peace on the land, whichever land that may be, whichever territory that may be, whichever country that might be. In our case, we're talking about Morocco. And so we have to really clear up our misconceptions and misunderstandings of primarily, basically everything. The United Nations, their soldiers, etc. The International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, the whole thing. It's not an evil organization. They're referees. They're the middleman in a game called international politics, right? You've got to have, everything is a game. Everything has rules. Even chess, you'll see two people at the chessboard, but there's a referee there. Arm wrestling, you have referees. WWC, WWF, you have referees. And there's also rules to each and every game. And when you're dealing with international relations, the United Nations is the referee, if you will. And they were also sanctioned by our Moroccan treaty. So they're actually part and parcel to our Moroccan treaties. And when you read and go over all their documents, it's clear that much of the language that's contained within these resolutions, these various conventions, these various documents coming out of the United Nations is based, you'll find a foundation in our treaties, in the Moroccan treaties. What treaties? Specifically, more so than anything else, the Act of Algeciras, but then you'll find things coming out of the Treaty of Madrid. You'll also find things coming out of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all based, their entire operation is based on Moroccan law. We are the foundation to it all, right? Our Moroccan laws trump all laws, except for maybe just cogence, preemptory norms of international law, which deals with human rights and state rights, meaning that if we were to establish a treaty, it wouldn't have any judicial standing. Can someone mute their mic, please? I think that's you, Rael. Peace, brother Rael, how are you? I lost my train of thought. Where was I? What was I saying? Oh man, in just that split second, I lost my train of thought. Anyhow, the point is that the United Nations is not that evil dictator that we all think that they are, and the soldiers are not here to remove people from their homes and take them into concentration camps. Let's make that point clear.
Was there, you were something about us putting together a treaty and it not being legitimate?
Okay, thank you, sis. Thank you, sister. If it's not in conformity with just cogence, then it holds no judicial standing in law. That would be the same as the secret treaty of Verona. I was watching House of Reawakening Minds last Friday with Taj Tariq Bey, and the foolishness continues. We have to do things as a state, and that's just the bottom line. He brought up international law and many different things, but nothing dealing with actually establishing a state government. And we keep going over this, the secret treaty of Verona, the unum sanctum policies, the Christian black codes, and all these laws, municipal laws, private laws that were penned by the colonizers. But these laws only apply to ipso dromore subjects, those who are under their protection, those who are under their authority. Those laws have absolutely nothing to do with nationals. Those laws have absolutely nothing to do with international law. It has no judicial standing in international law. It has judicial standing within their system of operation, their government structure. The reason why the Secret Treaty of Verona has no judicial standing is because of just the name in it of itself. It's called the Secret Treaty of Verona. This is the reason why your Constitution and any and all other constructive arrangements and agreements, international constructive arrangements and agreements, must be deposited and promulgated, because that makes it public law, right? Whereas any and all nations and all the nationals of all those different nations can have access to examine those documents. Well, if it's secret, then no one knows what it says. And therefore, the secrecy in and of itself can contain principles that are against human rights, that are against state rights, that's violating just conscience. And that's exactly what the Secret Treaty of Verona does. That's exactly what the Christian black codes do. That's exactly what the unum sanctum policies are all about. It's about violating the human rights of the nationals of the land. And based on our acquiescence in remaining in the status of Negro, Blacks, Coloreds, African Americans, to include Moorish Americans, we fall under the jurisdiction. This is the reason why Article 15 of the Treaty of Madrid is so important. Paragraph 1. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country must choose between the entire submission of the laws of the empire. Paragraph 1. Paragraph 2 says, loosely paraphrasing, if you don't choose to go back to Morocco, then the laws of the United States will apply to you without any restrictions. Therefore, the secret treaty, that's why the Secret Treaty of Verona, etc., apply to all the Negroes, Blacks, Coloreds, African Americans, Moorish Americans without any restrictions. Even more so the Moorish Americans, because they're not under any form of protection. They're stateless. But the Black Americans aren't no better, because they're also under civil rights. They're under the jurisdiction and the protections of the United States. And so therefore, all their legislation, right, applies to them. This is why you have your various George Floyds and your Trayvon Martins and your Michael Browns, etc., right? Unum sanctum policies in operation, Secret Treaty of Verona in operation, Christian black codes in operation, etc., etc. It applies to ipso dromore subjects, but it does not apply to nationals who have chosen between the submission of the laws of the empire and consented to a Moroccan government under treaty protections, our Moorish treaty protections, as well as international law in general. So I just wanted to open up with that, make that point clear. We don't have to worry about the Secret Treaty of Verona. We don't have to worry about any of those paper bulls from the Pope, right? The Pope has absolutely no authority. We don't care about the motu proprio. We have the authority over the Pope, and we have the authority over the United States. The good brother Jay Bay made that point clear. Let's make that point clear real quick. Let me camel back on that particular point. Where is my? There it is. Let's go back and look at something real quick. So let's look at the Treaty of Madrid. Where is it? See, these are all treaties, so you got them all in order. I'm pretty sure you can see my screen. 1856 Treaty of Paris, Algeciras, the French Protectorate, Montevideo Convention. Oh, it's not here. Oh, okay. It's not here. So the way we have to access it, let's access it through our website. And so what I'm going to show you all, which is what the good brother was breaking down in class 74, 73 or 74 treaties. We were talking about, or he was talking about, let's see here, 1880, right here. The right of protection in Morocco. Let's look at the signatures. All right, so these are the signatures. Let's see. Where is it? Let's go to the next page. How do I change the page on this? This is a weird document. It's coming off of column mail. Oh, I'm at the end. Okay, let's see. It shows you that that Morocco is the only state that did not sign. Okay, there it is. So you see United States. I'm sorry if I keep, every time I move the mouse, it moves the document. So you see the United States has their seal. They signed it. Lucius Fairchild signed it. Germany, Austria, Belgium, Spain, France, United Kingdom, Italy. For Morocco, well, it says signature in Arabic. No, it's not this one. It's the act. I'm sorry. That's I'm at the wrong document. I'm at the wrong document. The one that I'm looking at is the Act of Algeciras. I apologize. Give me a second. It's the Act of Algeciras. Okay, that's what I was looking at. The Act of Algeciras is the one that he didn't sign, not the Treaty of Madrid. There we go. You see Morocco? So you've got Germany, Joseph Rawitz, Austria, can't pronounce that name, Belgium, Justins, Spain, United States, Henry White, France, Revoil, Great Britain, Italy, Visconti, Venosta, Morocco, nobody, Netherlands, Testa, et cetera, et cetera. And then so Morocco never did sign. Done at Algeciras on the 7th day. This was done through his Catholic Majesty. So instead of reading the whole thing, I'm just going to explain the concept real quick in the additional protocols. In fact, let's read the additional protocols. On the point of signing the General Act of the Conference of Algeciras, the delegates of Germany, Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Spain, the United States of America, France, Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, and Sweden, taking into account the declaration of the delegates. So all these people signed. Nowhere do we see the Sultan of Morocco. Taking into account the declaration of the delegates of Morocco that they were not, for the present, in position to affix their signature, right? Okay. Taking into account the declaration of the delegates of Morocco that they were not, for the present, in position to affix their signatures there too. They being unable, owing to the distance, to receive an early reply from His Majesty, His Sharifian Majesty, concerning the points in regard to which they deemed it their duty to refer to him, reciprocally engage by virtue of their respective full powers to unite their efforts towards the ratification of the said General Act in its entirety by His Sharifian Majesty and towards this simultaneous enforcement of the reforms therein provided, which are interdependent. They therefore agree to charge His Excellency, Mr. Malmusi, Minister of Italy to Morocco and Dean of the Diplomatic Corps at Tangier, to take the necessary steps to that end by calling the attention of His Majesty the Sultan to great advantages that his empire would derive from would derive from the stipulations adopted at the conference by the unanimous actions of the signatory powers. The adhesion adhesion, right? Your signature, that's what adhesion means. The adhesion given by His Sharifian Majesty to the General Act of the Conference of Algeciras shall be communicated through the government of who? His Catholic Majesty, the Pope, to the governments of the other signatory powers. So the Pope has authority over the other signatory powers, but not the Sultan. That's clear. His Majesty, His Catholic Majesty has the authority over the other signatory powers, but not His Sharifian Majesty. What does that mean? Before I finish up the read. It means that His Catholic Majesty is under the jurisdiction or the authority of His Sharifian Majesty. What else does that mean? Well, if we are the successors of the Sultan through our Sharifian authorities, our governments, our maxims, that also then means that His Catholic Majesty fall under our authority, which means we don't care about the motu proprio. This adhesion shall have the same force as if the delegates of Morocco had affixed their signatures to the general. You see, this adhesion shall have the same force as if the delegates of Morocco had affixed their signatures to the General Act, and will take the place of ratification by His Sharifian Majesty, meaning that his verbal decree, him saying it's all good, is good. Did everybody sign? Did Austria, the United States sign? Did Germany sign? Did Great Britain sign? Did everybody sign? Okay, good. Tell him it's good to go. So by his verbal decree alone, which was given to the Pope, so that then now he can transmit that to the other signatory powers who he has authority over. That's what gave the Act of Algeciras the authority to operate in full force. So the signatory powers concerned that this was missing, his adhesion, his signature. They called upon the Pope to make contact with the Sultan to basically see what's up. Check with the Sultan, Pope. Find out what's up. Why hasn't he signed? Is this thing, are we still, go ahead, brother.
It seemed like their existence, they exist on paper alone, but the Sultan exists in flesh and blood.
Indeed.
Like, yeah.
Indeed.
Like more power. Yeah.
That's exactly right. They exist on paper because because all of these states, in witness whereof, the delegates of Germany, Austria, Hungary, Belgium, Spain, the United States of America, France, Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, and Sweden have signed the present additional protocols and affixed their seals thereto, except for who? His Sharifian Majesty. And all these states that were just mentioned are under the authority or within the dominions of His Sharifian Majesty, the Sultan of Morocco. Us being the successors to His Sharifian Majesty. Why are we the successors? Because His Sharifian Majesty, the Sultan, reduced himself, demoted himself to become the king of Morocco, the kingdom. By way of, and therefore leaving an open lane for a fast break for our Moorish state governments to come into existence. The pen is in a natural stat, it's in a neutral status, because at the time France had it, right? Through the 1912 Treaty of Fez, the French protectorate, right? During the time of the Sultan, they needed to negotiate something. France told the Sultan, if you were to demote yourself to become the king, we will let go of the pen. He did so, became the king in 1956, became the king of Morocco overseas, the kingdom. France let go of the pen. It remained in a neutral status. Who were the successors who were to come back then and pick up the pen to then now enact legislation? It would have been the Moroccan governments, the Moors, but the Moors were still acquiescing. The Moors were still sleeping. The Moors were marching and praying. The Moors were begging for civil rights. The Moors had Martin Luther King marching them all over the place. The Moors were dealing with KKK and police brutality and all these different things. And then, so therefore, since all that was taking place with us, who is the next power, competent power, who picked up the pen by default? The United States. But the real point that I'm making here is that we're constantly talking about the Pope, the Pope, the Pope. The Pope owns the United States. The Pope is this. The Pope wrote the motu proprio, telling Obama and everyone else to stand down. Dr. G asked a very important question. You've been talking about this forever, brother Taj. This thing came out in what, 2014 or something? Well, why haven't they relinquished anything? Why are they still operating as if nothing happened, despite his so-called order, right, coming out of the Pope's office? He couldn't answer that question. But the reason why is because the Moors are still acquiescing. The Pope, yes, he may have authority over the United States to a degree, but not to the degree that we do. When we come back, the whole thing is over with. All these signatory powers could fall under our authority, to include the Pope, as well as the United States of America, including Obama, or whatever president. In today's age, it is Biden. And he has that bill sitting on his desk, Public Law 856, right? 222141, right? That Moors love. They haven't relinquished extraterritorial jurisdiction because the president hasn't signed it. And why hasn't he signed it? Because he hasn't deemed the time to be necessary yet. When is the time necessary? When we come in with our pen and issue a judicial order to the White House to say, okay, the time is now to relinquish your extraterritorial jurisdiction in where? Morocco. Until then, they're going to continue exercising it. And when we do that, is when now we take back the authority not only over the United States, but also over the Pope. The Pope that has no authority over the consular court. Consular court supersedes the Pope. So why are we worried about some damn Pope? No matter who it is. We have to get out of this misconception and misunderstanding. And this is why we've got to give honors to the good brother Jay Bay for breaking these points down. I talk to him all the time. Right? And he pours into me, gives me all types of reference points that I've had to go back and read to make myself approve. And I'm seeing what he's seeing. You all can do the same. Just reading this right here, you'll see the additional protocols. You can see clearly that the Sharifian Majesty, the Sultan, was in chill mode while everybody else was scrambling, trying to get their signatures in. Then they petitioned the Pope to go check on the Sultan to see what's up. Like, man, he hasn't signed. Where is it at? He hasn't signed. See, it's blank. That's the additional protocols. That comes before this protocol, this one here. So after the ratification instructions, which is Articles 120, 121, 122, the general provisions, 123, Germany signed, Austria signed, Belgium signed, Spain signed, United States signed, France signed, Great Britain signed, Italy signed, Morocco, nothing. Netherlands signed, everybody signed. Morocco didn't sign nothing. That's where you come into your additional protocols. When all the signatory powers, Germany, Austria, etc., petition the Pope to go check on the Sultan to find out why he hasn't signed and is he gonna sign? Is this thing gonna be in full force or not? And with his own verbal decree, he said, tell them all it's good to go. That's the power that we have, because now we are the sultans through our states. Keeping in mind that the people are the Sultan, the people are His Majesty, the peoples are Her Majesties. And me, for example, I'm just simply a humbled public servant on behalf of the people, the sultans, the queens, the kings, who are the sovereigns who came together in holy matrimony The Constitution being their contract that has been ratified, deposited, and promulgated. And then they selected me. They selected Sister Story. They selected Brother Isaac as the Kazi to head the government on their behalf. So we are all public servants on behalf of the people, but the people are the sultans in the government, because the state are the people are the state, and the state is now the successors to the sultan, which therefore means that we have the authority over all these signatory powers, to include the Pope. I'm just trying to make the point clear that we're not concerned about the motu proprio. We're not concerned about any papal bull. We're not concerned about the Pope. We're not concerned about the secret treaty of Verona. We're not concerned about unum sanctum policies. We're not concerned of the Christian black codes. We shut it all down with this. By doing what? But let me show you what we did. Let's go back to the Constitution. I mean, to the website. And I'll get into the class. I'm sorry, I know I'm carrying on here, but this is important. This is what we did right here. Enacted our first legislation, which is called the Law of Sankofa, our Constitution, which identifies our dominions, our longitude, latitude, that restores or reclaims the ancient territories that were once operated and controlled by our Moorish ancestry, our ancient foremothers and forefathers. This action, being active and not passive, this activity, this enactment, right, of our Constitution is what Prophet Noble Drew Ali was talking about. It's the other half that wasn't told. It is worshiping under your own vine and fig tree and confessing your own. It is taking your seat in the affairs of men. You enact a constitution with your holy trifecta. What is your holy trifecta? Your three branches of government. What are those? Your legislative branch, for us, is made up of nothing but matriarchs. Your head of state, your wazir, al-rais, or your prime minister, and your judicial branch, which is your chief judge of consular court. Because you cannot have a standalone consular court. The consular court has to be sanctioned by the state through the judicial branch. This is what we've done. This is what's given us full powers to operate internationally and enjoy treaty protections, as well as diplomatic immunities. So the days are gone, as good brother J. Bay pointed out in the last class, the days are gone. What these people think they're just gonna assassinate us, because now we fall under international protections through the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, or diplomatic immunities. So back to the United Nations. How evil are they? Well, let's recap Article 1, the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. The purpose of the United Nations are to maintain international peace, our third principle, love, truth, peace, to maintain international peace and security, and to that end, to take effective collective measures. Collective is in terms of effective collective measures, meaning all the nations of planet Earth, all 193 member states, as well as their non-member states. That's a collective. So it's a collective thing. They all came together while we were asleep, by the way. They came together to enact the charter to bring about peace and to establish documents such as Resolution 1514, the rights of indigenous peoples, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On whose behalf? On behalf of those sleeping Moors. The world go as we go. And the scourge of war that the United Nations is attempting to stop is because the Moors fell asleep. The Moors it's the nation who, since time immemorial, despite our negative activity that we had partaken in before, by the way, which is why we failed. But we were always those who always came in and reigned in the order. We always were the ones to come in and establish love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice where it was needed. The world knows this. So collectively, they came together to establish the charter on behalf of who? The indigenous peoples. Who are the indigenous peoples? The Moors. And to that end, to take effective collective measures for the prevention and removal of threats to the peace. How do you remove, prevent, and remove? So if you can't prevent it with the pen from by way of judgments from the courts, you want to still maintain your belligerence, then the next step is removal. How do I remove you? With the peace soldiers, the guys with the blue helmets with the UN written on it, that everybody think they're coming to your house to knock on your door and pull you out of there and take you to concentration camps. And for the suppression of acts of aggression or other breaches of the peace, and to bring about by peaceful means and in conformity with the principles of justice, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and international law, adjustment or settlement of international disputes or situations which might lead to a breach of the peace. 2, to develop friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principles of equal rights and self-determination of peoples, and to take other appropriate measures to strengthen universal peace. 3, to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian character, and in promoting and encouraging respect for human rights. The Secret Treaty of Verona does not promote or encourage respect for human rights. It does the exact opposite. So if you fall under the charter through ratifying, depositing, and promulgating your constitution with the United Nations, then the Secret Treaty of Verona has no judicial standing on your state or the nationals of your state. It only has judicial standing against ipso jure Moorish subjects. That's who it was written for. And for fundamental freedoms, here's another principle: love, truth, peace, freedom, justice. And for fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion, and to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations and the attainment of these common ends. To be a center, so the United Nations is a center for harmonizing the actions of nations in the attainment of these common ends. What common ends? Okay, well, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. That's the common end. Moorish principles that was brought back to us by Prophet Noble Drew Ali. I mean, Prophet Noble Drew Ali didn't invent anything. He brought everything back. He didn't invent the word more. He didn't invent this fast. He didn't invent love, truth, peace. These are all ancient principles. We fell asleep and he came back to wake us up by reminding us of who we were based on our consanguinity, based on who our ancient and foremothers and forefathers were. And you see that those principles, you'll find it right here in this preamble, in this Article 1. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I'm gonna read it again. Number 4, to be a center for harmonizing. So the United Nations is a center. That's what this is basically calling themselves, the referees. They are in the center of it all to promote to harmonize amongst the nations for the attainment of the common ends of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, reestablishing peace. Okay, I won't beat down that horse any further. Why is my, come on, computer. Usually when I come down, the tabs will pop up. I don't know why it's not doing it now. I have to close it out or minimize it to then bring it up. Okay. So Article 23 of the rights of indigenous peoples. This is where we left off last. Indigenous peoples have the right to determine and develop priorities and strategies for exercising their right to development. In particular, indigenous peoples, Moorish peoples, the Moors, have the right to be actively involved in developing and determining health, housing, and other economic and social programs affecting them as far as possible to administer such programs through their own institutions. Our own institutions, i.e. AMPAG. 24, 1, indigenous peoples have the right to their traditional medicines, right? KIF, right, etc. This is why our, gotta go to it. This is why our legislation that was written by the Sutra, the Minister of Defense, Shalom Bey, this is why it holds standing, Moroccan Plant Medicine Act. Right? That's in line with Article 24. Indigenous peoples have the right to their traditional medicines. Keeping in mind that that act that Brother Shalom Bey put together, it was based in the Act of Algeciras. My point exactly. Our treaties is the foundation of all these international documents coming out of the United Nations. So where did they get that from? Indigenous peoples have the right to their traditional medicines. The Act of Algeciras. And to maintain their health practices, including the conservation of their vital medicinal plants. KIF, animals and minerals. Indigenous individuals also have the right to access without any discrimination to all social and health services. 2, indigenous individuals have an equal right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. States, uppercase states, shall take the necessary steps with a view to achieving progressively the full realization of this right. So the United States shall take the necessary steps with a view to achieving progressively the full realization of this right. Okay, since the story earlier mentioned, I want to go back. Let me digress. Since the story earlier mentioned in our meeting the term various stages of advancement. Where did she get that from? Where do we get that from? Okay, let's find out. That's not it. That's not it. Right here. Article 73, Declaration regarding non-self-governing territories, Charter of the United Nations, right? Listen to this carefully. Article 73, members of the United Nations which have or assume responsibilities for the administration of territories whose peoples have not yet attained a full measure of self-government recognize the principle that the interests of the inhabitants of these territories are paramount and accept as a sacred trust the obligation to promote the utmost within the system of international peace and security established by the present charter, the well-being of the inhabitants of these territories. And to this end, I want to maximize this. Brother Hakeem, I'm on the regular Dell laptop. No longer, I'm not on the Apple. How do I increase the font
of the web page?
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Control.
it's the same process of rolling the mouse wheel forward by holding down control or simply pressing the plus.
There we go. I already did it. Islam. Appreciate it. I just want everybody to be able to see. And I think we can see it better now. And to this end, A, to ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, their political, economic, social, and educational advancement, their just treatment, and their protection against abuses. So we have protections against abuses. So when people ask, well, what gives you protection? International law. It's in the charter, it's in our treaties, it's everywhere. The Vienna Conventions, the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. I mean, there's so many documents that upholds the protections of states or state protections. B, to develop self-government, to take due account of the political aspirations of the peoples, and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions or states according to the particular circumstances of each territory and its peoples and their varying stages of advancement. So the United States and any other foreign state has to uphold this. They have to assist us as we go through our varying stages of advancement as a young and up and coming nation. C, to further international peace and security. D, to promote constructive measures of development, to encourage research and to cooperate with one another, and when and where appropriate, with specialized international bodies with a view to the practical achievement of the social, economic, and scientific purposes set forth in this article. And E, to transmit regularly to the Secretary General for information purposes, subject to such limitations as security and constitutional considerations may require, statistical and other information of a technical nature relating to economic, social, and educational conditions in the territories for which they are respectively responsible, other than those territories to which Chapter 12 and 13 apply. So E says to transmit regularly to the Secretary General for information purposes. So every time we send any form of ministerial decree to the United Nations, or sorry, to the United States, the Minister of Foreign Affairs must transmit those documents to the Secretary General, letting them know what's going on, what our process is, letting them know, okay, we sent the United States this particular order. I need you to be aware of that. Why are we doing that? Because we're building a case. Because now if they continue to stall and ignore and play games, we're building a case with the United Nations. So now when we petition the United Nations, all the transmissions that took place will be on the record as proof that the United States is still exercising extraterritorial jurisdiction, genocide, which is morally condemnable, etc. Now we have enough teeth in the bite to make a competent move in terms of taking these people to the International Court of Justice. It's through our regular transmission to the Secretary General. Keep that in mind, Brother Haji. You've got to transmit everything to them so they'd be aware of all the moves that we're making against the colonizers. All right. So I just wanted to touch on that. Why? Because of what I just read. Indigenous individuals have an equal right to the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health. States shall take the necessary steps with a view to achieving progressively the full realization of this right. All right, I think I made that point clear. Article 25, Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinctive spiritual relationship with their traditionally owned or otherwise occupied and used lands. Occupied. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain and strengthen their distinctive spiritual relationship and their traditionally owned or otherwise occupied and used lands, territories, waters, and coastal seas and other resources, and to uphold their responsibilities to future generations in this regard. This is a decolonization document. Article 26. Indigenous peoples have the right to the lands, here we go again, territories and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired. How do we acquire it? Through consanguinity. We are autochthonous, meaning we spring from the land. The trees came from the land, the soil. The weeds came from the soil. Animals came from the soil. So did the Moors. We are the indigenous peoples. So indigenous peoples have the right, Moors have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned and occupied or otherwise used or acquired. This is the reason why through our longitude, latitude, and the Uti Posidatus jurisdiction of our territory, right here, in our constitution, the dominions. This is our lands that we are claiming. The dominions for the Allodium Orange Palladium Ante, Georgia include all land, air, and waterways within latitude 30.5 degrees north to 34.9 degrees north by longitude 80.8 degrees west to 85.6 degrees west. Our Earth dominions are 298 miles long, east to west, and 230 miles wide, north to south. The total area of land and waterways is 59,425 square miles. In parentheses, 57,906 square miles of land and 1,519 square miles of water. The lowest point is 0 feet above sea level, known as the Atlantic Ocean. And the highest point is 4,784 feet above sea level, known as Brasstown Ball. These are the dominions from the center of the earth through our divine footprint into the farthest reaches of the cosmos. I mean, we're taking this thing to the galaxy, baby. We have taken over the entire jurisdiction, law, land, air, and water, upon which we thrive, through which we heal, and in which we are restored. Okay, if you're curious, let's go to Google real quick. Let's type in Georgia. And let's see, let's look at the map, at the images. Let me just give me the map. Okay, there we go, right here. Just this is fine. See that there? These borders is what has been reclaimed through our dominions in our constitution. This is the longitude, latitude that we have reclaimed. And in doing so, these borders have become international borders under the authority of Allodium Orange Palladium Ante, Georgia, which means that the state of Georgia falls under the authority of Allodium Orange Palladium Ante, Georgia, which means free Moorish estates before Georgia ever even existed. This is what we've done. This is our ancestral land that was reaffirmed or affirmed here. Indigenous peoples have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired since time immemorial. Paragraph 1 of the Circle 7 Quran. What did Prophet Muhammad Ali say? Time never was when man was not. We've always been here, except at the time there was no borders, right? There were no borders. The colonizers came in, carved out all these borders, and since we were asleep while they were doing that, when we come back now into our full powers, when we rise back up into our governments, we have to take things back as is. We can't take it back as when we were awake. We done went to sleep. That's on us. So now when we wake up, we have to take it back as is. What is as is? Exactly what I just pointed out. So if we take that off and we go to the landmass of Morocco that they call United States, these borders weren't here once upon a time, right? But they are now. And so now, based on the uti possidetis jurisdiction principle of international law, we have to take everything back as is, which means then also we cannot encroach upon the Moors from Alabama. So we can't take Georgia and Alabama because the Moors in Alabama have the right to reestablish their territories within Alabama. So if you were to take Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, the Alabama Moors, the Mississippi, the Alibamu, right? Alibamu Moors and the Mississippi Moors can take us to court under what's called a frontier dispute. How do I know that? Burkina Faso and Mali. Nothing but reference points. Nothing but reference points. Others just like the rattle off word salads. We're coming with reference points. This is the ICJ. Case concerning the frontier dispute, Burkina Faso and the Republic of Mali. Judgment of December 22nd, 1986. I'm not going to read anything other than one thing. I'm just going to show y'all something. Real quick. Where's just the article? Where is it? Article 1. In this document, you would see that they were claiming or arguing over this right here. Let me increase it. What do you see here? Excuse me. Let me move this out of the way. What do you see here? I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. Let me go further up. Right here. West of the point with the geographical coordinates, longitude 0 degrees, 40 feet, 47 inches west, latitude 15 degrees, 0 feet, 3 inches. I think I'm reading that correct. North, right? This is Burkina Faso's jurisdiction. And I believe this one that's the same. And then down here, we've got, I believe, Mali's jurisdiction. It's all about longitude, latitude. This case is what points that out. Reference points. So what do we have here? Our longitude, latitude within our dominions, which represents what? Georgia, so-called state of Georgia, which is now called AMPAG. In accordance with what? Okay, go back to it. The rights of indigenous peoples. Indigenous peoples have the right to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired. These are building blocks. These are ABCs. This is simple. There's nothing special about me or J Bay. Right? It's right here. You just gotta know where to look, right? That's where the good brother have assisted all the Moors, is by giving us the reference points and pointing to where we need to look to find the answers to the test. Everybody else had us looking everywhere else. Go read the David McRitchie book. Go read J.A. Rogers' book. Go read the Pope's Motu Proprio. Right? What's the Pimenta book? Jose Pimenta.
A Zoom in the Nation?
No, that's Elihu Bay. That book as well. Jose Pimenta has a really good one. The Children of the West. What's that guy's name in the Shakespeare thing? Othello, The Children of the West, something like that it's called. All these other books, everything else but this. Marching and Praying, begging for civil rights, the wrong argument, begging for legislation to be passed for our protection. And they're looking at us like we're stupid because we got the power of the pen. We just need to know we just needed to know the instructions, the answers to the test. Where do we really look? You don't know what you don't know. And to make matters worse, they got you in the mental status and the incorrect mental understanding of you being Negro, Black, colored, coming from Africa. You got Roots, you got Amistad, you got 12 Years a Slave, you got all these slave movies, you've got the books, the Alex Haley books, you got all, come on, man. So now, even if someone gave you the answer to the test and you go back and you read it, you're not gonna see yourself in it because you're seeing Moroccan, Moorish subjects, Moorish proteges, you're seeing Sharifian empire, Sharifian authorities, none of which you have no idea about. Because even many of us on this land had absolutely no idea of any of these terms until we came into the knowledge of these treaties and these international documents, including United States legislation that refer to us as such. Also, they refer to us as Muslim subjects. Black people don't know, Black people have no idea what no damn Muslim is. So if a Black person read a lot of these documents, there's still going to be laws because they think that they come from Africa. And those who don't think that, some of us who no longer think that we came from Africa, they think that they're Cherokees and Hebrew Israelites. And it's not to say that we're not Cherokees, it's not to say that we're not Hebrews, but those are different statuses and different designations. Your political status is what needs to be addressed. Your political status is what needs to be understood, not your tribal affiliation. So Cherokees are in Morocco. They're not in America. Cherokees are Moroccans. Chickasaws are Moroccans. Seminoles are Moroccans. The 5 civilized tribes are all Moroccans. They're not Americans. I don't care what the 1828 Webster's Dictionary said. What does the treaty say? This is too easy, y'all. And we just, we're doing exactly as the prophet told us not to do. What is that? Clinging on to principles that delude to slavery. You don't see even the term Moorish American nowhere. You can't be Moorish and American. You're either one or the other. You must choose between one or the other. And for you, Asiatic man and woman, Black man and woman, whatever, you're supposed to, Dorothy, you're supposed to choose Morocco, the rock of salvation. Al-Maghrib, Al-Aqsa, Morocco of the farthest west. Continuing on. 2, indigenous peoples have the right to own, use, develop, and control the lands, territories, and resources that they possess by reason of traditional ownership and other traditional occupation or use, as well as those which they have otherwise acquired. I read that already. 3, states shall give legal recognition and protection to these lands, territories, and resources. Such recognition shall be conducted with due respect to the customs, traditions, and land tenure systems of the indigenous peoples concerned. It's clear as day. Indigenous peoples concerned, the Moorish peoples concerned. States shall give legal recognition and protection to those lands, territories, and resources. Such recognition shall be conducted with due respect to the customs, traditions, and land tenure systems of the indigenous peoples concerned. In this case, Moroccan Moors. Article 27. States shall establish and implement in conjunction with indigenous peoples concerned a fair, independent, impartial, open, and transparent process, giving due recognition to indigenous peoples' laws, legislation, right? Traditions, customs, and land tenure system to recognize and adjudicate the rights of indigenous peoples pertaining to their lands, territories, and resources, including those which were traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used. Indigenous peoples, Moorish peoples, the Moors, shall have the right to participate in this process Article 28. 1, indigenous peoples, Moors, Black people, Moorish Americans, but the correct term is Moroccan peoples, have the right to redress by means that can include restitution or, when this is not possible, just, fair, and equitable compensation for their lands, territories, and resources. Reparations, right? But we don't want reparations. We want restoration. We want decolonization and demilitarization. That doesn't mean kicking them off the land. That means putting them right where they belong, trading places up under us, under our governance, period. Pay these taxes. You're long overdue, buddies, which they have traditionally owned and otherwise occupied or used, and which have been, I mean, it's repetitive. They're saying the same thing over and over, and which have been confiscated, taken, occupied, used, or damaged without their free, prior, and informed consent. Why are we, I mean, what are we talking about here? Do I need to read that again? I think I do. Indigenous peoples have the right to redress by means that can include restitution or, when this is not possible, just, fair, and equitable compensation for the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used, and which have been confiscated. Through what? Extraterritorial jurisdiction? Through what? Use of force, coercion, taken, occupied, used, or damaged without their free, prior, and informed consent. The same thing they did with the Naturalization Act. They did that without our free, prior, and informed consent. That's why Article 15 came out in 1880 with the Treaty of Madrid. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country like the United States must choose between the entire submissions of the laws of the empire if you want to remain as a sovereign. Otherwise, you would remain under the jurisdiction of under the American jurisdiction, which is the cares of the world. And if that's the case, then all their laws and legislations shall apply to you without any restrictions. Make your choices. Are you going to consent to your Moroccan governments? Or are you going to remain as an American because you think that America is ancient and you are the autochthonous, Aboriginal, and an Indigenous American, and this is America, and I love America, and we are the patriots of America? You are Moroccans. Stop the bullshit. 2, unless otherwise freely agreed upon by the peoples concerned, compensation shall take the form of lands, territories, and resources equal in quality, size, and legal status, or of monetary compensation or other appropriate redress. What is the other appropriate redress that we are going after? Decolonization. Give it all back. We take back the control of the system that was already here before you even came here. The longitude and latitude coordinates of everything comes from us. Article 29. 1, indigenous peoples have the right to the conservation and protection of the environment and the productive capacity of their lands or territories and resources. States shall establish and implement assistance programs for indigenous peoples for such conservation and protection without discrimination. And then see, they're not specific about states because they're not calling anyone out. Why? Because there's so many of them. It ain't limited to the United States. It's Great Britain, it's France, it's Italy, it's Portugal. Brazil is colonized by Portugal. Barbados was colonized by Great Britain. I forget the sister's name, the prime minister of Barbados. kicked them out of there a couple months ago, about a year ago. What do you think that she used to make that so? These documents. It's telling you to do so. So why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we paying attention to what's going on around planet Earth? Instead, we worried about the new Lil Baby album coming out. We worried about what Kanye West is saying. Man, y'all better pay attention to what's going on in the world. The prophet said that we must learn from the Europeans, and it ain't limited to the Europeans. You must learn from all nations on the earth, across planet Earth, and act on it. We must be active and not passive. Passive Moors sit around thinking that they're active, drawing up pictures of what they might want to call Moor Vengers. That's the most passive crap ever. You're gonna sit here and draw up Tashariq Bey is Captain America, Asuda Duke is Doctor Strange, Ras Mariah is Storm. Really? Really? This is what we're doing? Childish behavior as such? Putting together Avengers characters that are Moors? Is this what we're doing? That's passive as hell. Active means enacting legislation, enacting constitutions, using the pen to move on the colonizers. Not drawing up some damn more Avengers. And 3, states shall also take effective measures to ensure as needed that programs for monitoring, maintaining, and restoring the health of indigenous peoples as developed and implemented by the peoples affected by such materials are duly implemented. Article 30, 1, military activities shall not take place in the lands or territories of the Moorish peoples. Demilitarization. Military activities shall not take place in the lands or territories of indigenous peoples unless justified by relevant public interest or otherwise freely agreed with or requested by the indigenous peoples concerned. They need our involvement to have military activity. Where do they get that from? The Act of Algeciras. Okay. Reference points. Let's look at chapter 1. Chapter 1, declaration relative to the organization of the police, which includes the military. Remember, this was written in 1906. What's chapter 2? Regulation concerning the declaration and repression of the contraband of arms. We have authority over the police and the arms, and yet at the same, while we have that power, we got Trayvon Martin, we got George Floyd, we got Emmett Till, we got Michael Brown, and we the ones that have authority and power over contraband of arms, as well as the police and all other forms of law enforcement, which includes the military. Look at this term, Moorish Cades. Who's ever heard the word Cades? Look at this other term, Moorish Mohammedans. You don't see, that doesn't say Moorish American, that says Moorish Mohammedans. This doesn't say Moorish American, that says Moorish Cades. What else? Moxin. Sometimes you'll see it spelled with a K, other times with a G. We spelled it with a K. It shall be recruited by the Moxin from Moorish Mohammedans, commanded by Moorish Cades, and distributed in the 8 ports open to commerce. you know? It breaks my heart, man, because it's like, this document came out in 1906. It's 2022. Tariq Bey ain't never read that? I guess not, huh? Or maybe he's compromised. Listen, man, I don't care. I don't care. I say it like it is. Back to my damn point, because I'm just getting frustrated here by just thinking of these things. Okay. All right. Military activities shall not take place in the lands or territories of indigenous peoples unless justified by a relevant public interest or otherwise freely agreed with or requested by the indigenous peoples concerned. 2, states shall undertake effective consultation with the indigenous peoples concerned through appropriate procedures and in particular through their representative institutions prior to using their lands or territories for military activities. Obama signed this on behalf of the United States of America, the de jure government. It wasn't accepted or ratified by the international organization, the United States, but it doesn't matter. They're under that, they're still under the directives and obligated to these principles. I'll read that again. States shall undertake effective consultation with the United States, foreign states, invading states, colonizing states, shall undertake effective consultations with the indigenous peoples concerned through appropriate procedures, and in particular through their representative institutions prior to using their lands or territories for military activities. Act of Algeciras. The Act of Algeciras is the foundation to the charter, y'all. That's why the UN is not the devil. Article 31. 1. Indigenous peoples have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expressions, as well as the manifestations of their sciences, technologies, and cultures, including human and genetic resources, seeds, medicines, knowledge of the properties of fauna and flora, oral traditions, literatures, designs, sports, and traditional games, and visual and performing arts. This is all Moorish science. They also have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their intellectual property over such cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expression. That was a mouthful, but it's basically saying that we can do any and all things that we want to do based on our self-determination as it relates to our ancient customs, our distinct ancient customs, period. 2, in conjunction with indigenous peoples, foreign states shall take effective measures to recognize and protect the exercise of these rights. I mean, what you want me to say? It's clear as day, but you can't exercise any of this as an individual. You have to come in, you have to come to, you have to rise to the competency of a state government. Following and adhering to the customary norms of international law, following the instructions. Article 32, indigenous peoples have the right to determine and develop priorities and strategies for the development or use of their lands and territories and other resources. We keep talking about our lands and our territories and our resources. What is our resources? Our gold, our silver, copper, oil, you name it. And who's making money off all that stuff? Them. When they took down the Twin Towers, well, what did they come out of there with? All the gold bullions. You know where you saw that played out before it happened? Die Hard 4 with Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis. Go back and watch that. What did the Russians or whoever these guys?
Sure did.
You remember that. They went and they had like 18 dump trucks. They went into the basement of the Federal Reserve
Hey, wow, that's deep.
and snatched
That's
up
deep.
all the gold. That's what they did with 9/11. They went in the basement of the World Trade Center and got all the gold, pretending like they were picking up the debris. They were grabbing gold because there was no debris. I can show and prove on a different level, on a different call or something. There was a scientist, an engineer. She was a Albayan, a woman. She was breaking down what really happened with the World Trade Center. In short, so that we can get back to the reading, it was energy direct weapons. The building was pulverized. The World Trade Center sits on somewhat of like an island in Manhattan. If the tonnage of all those bricks and all that debris would have actually came down on the ground, it would have compromised the integrity of the foundation in which it was sitting on, off the banks of the river. Meaning that the whole thing would have collapsed into the water. That's why when they were doing the reports, you had people out there with masks and it was dusty all over the place. Super dusty is because it was pulverized. And they snuck in the back door with their dump trucks, loaded up all the gold and got the hell on. That's our resources that the United Nations is talking about. Indigenous peoples have the right to determine and develop priorities and strategies for the development or use of their lands or territories and other resources. States shall consult and cooperate in good faith with the indigenous peoples concerned through their own representative institutions, i.e. AMPAG is a representative institution on behalf of the nationals of AMPAG, in order to obtain their free and informed consent prior to the approval of any project affecting their lands or territories and other resources, particular in connection with the development, utilization, or exploitation of minerals, water, or other resources. So what they did in Flint, Michigan, they didn't get our permission to poison that water, did they? They sure as hell didn't. They did not consult with the Moxon. They did not consult with the Sharifian authorities before they went messing around with the water in Flint, Michigan. But why did they not consent with our authorities? Because our authorities is snoozing. It's non-existent. Mom and dad ain't home. The landlords are not around. So we get to do whatever we want, but there will be repercussions for it, and they know that. 3, states shall provide effective mechanisms for just and fair redress for any such activities, and appropriate measures shall be taken to mitigate adverse environmental, economic, social, cultural, or spiritual impacts. Article 33, 1, indigenous peoples have the right to determine their own identity or membership in accordance with their customs and traditions. Based on our customs and traditions, our identity is that of a Moroccan, period. This does not impair the right of indigenous individuals to obtain citizenship of the states in which they live. So you can get your citizenship from the United States if you want, right? You may maintain it, but in order for you to maintain your naturalization status, you'd have to get permission from a Moroccan government. How do I know that? Okay, let's look at it. Treaty of Madrid, right? Article 15. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such unconstitutional naturalization, choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco, unless it shall be proved, unless it shall be approved, unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. That's where I get it from. The Sultan said it in 1880 on Article 15. But what does Article 2 say? I mean, what does paragraph 2 say? Foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco according to the rules established by the laws of each country, meaning Hungary, Spain, United States, whatever, shall continue to them as regards all its effects without any restrictions. Unum sanctum policies applied to you. Secret Treaty of Verona applied to you. The Christian Black Codes applied to you. All their legislation applied to you because you failed to choose between the entire submission of the laws of the empire and do as what was told for you to do in paragraph 1. Let me not, this stuff, let's say that, this stuff is too easy. All right. Ooh, y'all, I'm energized today because I'm just saying, man, why am I 44 and just finding out about these documents? We should have grown up knowing these things from cradle to the grave. But it's been kept from us. They've been hiding it from us. So the whole Illuminati secret, the secret society secrets, the Freemasonic secrets has absolutely nothing to do with no damn FEMA camps and the enslavement of humanity. It has to do with the shrine. What is the shrine? The Moorish shrine. The Shriners are the ones holding on to the shrine. And what is the shrine? Moroccan laws, Moroccan identity, Moroccan customs, the land itself being Morocco. Go look at any Shriner temple and you see Morocco written all over it, the entire customs. It looked like Tangiers. The building, the architecture, everything about it. And then they'll have this pale-faced European standing in front of the building, the temple, with a fez on, carrying a baby, like the Shriners Hospital or something. Man, if you don't get the woosah, let me woosah, because I'm getting a little. 2, indigenous peoples have the right to determine the structures and to select the membership of their institutions in accordance with their own procedures. Did I read one? Yeah, I did. Let me read it again. Indigenous peoples have the right to determine their own identity or membership in accordance with their customs and traditions. This does not impair the right of indigenous individuals to obtain citizenship of the states in which they live. So you'd have to get permission from the Moroccan government if you wanted to remain as a naturalized citizen of the United States under the American jurisdiction. But I can assure you that's not where you want to be, because that's where you will find the cares of the world. Moorish Americans who want to stand on your American square, that's where you find the cares of the world. All right. 34, indigenous peoples have the right to promote, develop, and maintain their institutional structures and their distinctive customs, spirituality, traditions, procedures, practices, and in the cases where they exist, juridical systems or customs in accordance with international human rights standards. Just cogents. 35, indigenous peoples have the right to determine the responsibilities of individuals to their communities. Indigenous peoples have the right to determine the responsibilities of individuals to their communities. We got our own community. We have our own organized juror society. AMPAG is a society. It's a growing society in its infancy, going through its various stages of advancement as we grow. We're just coming out the cradle. We've got training wheels. We're babies right now, right? Going through our various stages of advancement as we continue checking the boxes and figuring things out, remembering what we already knew, utilizing documents, international law documents, treaties, et cetera, to help us come back into the ancient knowledge and wisdom of our ancient foremothers and forefathers, to then get back into the governance of our land, to then force decolonization and to force demilitarization, as this document clearly points out. Article 36, Indigenous peoples, in particular those divided by international borders, have the right to maintain and develop contacts, relations, and cooperation, including activities for spiritual, cultural, political, economic, and social purposes with their own members, as well as other peoples across the borders. We have the right to engage in commerce with other people. Where did that come from? The treaties. 2, states in consultation and cooperation with indigenous peoples. Let me rephrase that. Colonizers, colonists, which aren't necessarily white, many of them look like us. We started colonization. Colonizers in consultation and cooperation with Moors, indigenous peoples, shall take effective measures to facilitate the exercise and ensure the implementation of this right. So they're being told what to do. I mean, brothers and sisters, mothers and sons, I mean, isn't this stuff clear enough? All the AMPAG nationals and officials should feel very confident in what we're doing. These are the principles that we're following, nothing else. These are the principles, these are the instructions. We ain't doing nothing else other than that. There is no deviating from this. It is a strict line, following the yellow brick road back home, Dorothy, to Morocco, the rock of salvation, Morocco. Go. 37. 1, indigenous peoples have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of treaties. Moors have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of their Moroccan treaties that was written by their ancestors. Agreements and other constructive arrangements concluded with states or their successors, and to have states honor and respect such treaties, United States and United States of America and the state of whatever. You are to honor and respect our treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements, and also honor and respect the fact that we have the right to observe these documents. They don't have a choice. We know what we're doing. We're doing the right things, Moors. This has been their fear, their pain point for the past 200 years, in particular the last 100 years since the prophet came. That's why they off the prophet, because he was bringing us closer and closer and closer to this. He left a lot of crumbs, a trail of crumbs for us to get to this. Then it took 100 years. Why? Because of the great schism, or really what the prophet called the great sellout, that's still taking place all the way till today with your grand this and your grand that, grand governor, grand supreme, whatever, who are really guilty what's the word, y'all? Derogation of duty. What's the word? I'm always messing that word up. Somebody help me out.
Dereliction of duty.
I knew you was gonna come in and say that, Grand Sheik. I knew it was gonna be you. This is what's going on. 2, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as diminishing or eliminating the rights of indigenous peoples or the rights of the Moorish peoples contained in treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. 38. Put yourself on mute, bro, Grand Sheik.
Is on.
Put yourself on mute. Thank you, brother. 38. States, in consultation and cooperation, colonizers, colonists, the United States, the foreign European signatory powers, in consultation and cooperation with Moors, indigenous peoples, shall take the appropriate measures, including legislative measures to achieve the ends of this declaration. So they got to enact legislation. But we have to tell them to enact legislation. So how do we tell them to enact legislation? We have to enact legislation. So the mothers got to tell the colonists what they need to do. And her sons, particularly the judge, must enforce it. Keeping in mind that that judge, the chief judge, the Qazi, could also be a mother. See, our Constitution is somewhat discriminatory because no man is allowed in the matriarchal council or the legislative branch. It is strictly for the matriarchs. It is strictly for the mothers. However, all other positions, governmental positions, can be headed by either a male or a woman. So you could have a situation where all the women are in the legislative branch, and then you still have a wazir or the prime minister as a mother, and then you still have a chief judge as a mother, right? All women running the whole, that could happen, right? Because we, according to the Constitution, like I said, only women can be a part of the matriarchal council. No man can be a part of that, but yet in all the other departments, all the other government positions, that's shared, male or female. There's no discrimination there. Awesome stuff. Article 39, indigenous peoples have the right to have access to financial and technical assistance from states and through international cooperation for the enjoyment of the rights contained in this declaration. Moors have the right to have access to financial and technical assistance from the United States of America and the United States and its chartered colonies, state ofs, whatever, and through international cooperation for the enjoyment of the rights contained in this declaration. So when people concern themselves with, let's say, well, I'm 65 years old, I'm getting SSI checks. If I become a national of AMPAG, will I lose that benefit? No. Article 39, no. You get to maintain it. Not just Article 39, but also Article 73 of the charter that I just read over when I was speaking about going through our various stages of advancement. They have to assist us as we are going through our various stages of advancement. That means that your CDL, you get to keep, your SSI, you get to keep, your retirement check coming from wherever, whoever, you get to keep. It's called amity and commerce, free, peace, and friendship. Based on those principles, based on that understanding, yes, you as a national of AMPAG, when you come into AMPAG, you can still maintain whatever food stamps, I don't care, whatever it is that you're getting from the United States, you may still continue to get it. This is what your nom de guerre, strawman, all caps name is for. It allows you to interface with and participate in commerce with the corporation and all its subsidiaries known as the United States, the state of, in all its municipalities, whether it be states, cities, towns, townships, whatever, parishes. They did us a favor when they gave us the all caps name. They just didn't know we were going back to Morocco to now become natural breathing human beings. But as a natural human being, sentient being, you cannot interface with a corporation. This is where your shell company comes in. What is your shell company? Your Kendrick Johnson, your John Doe, your Larry Smith. That's your shell company. Your all caps on your birth certificate. But John Smith Bay, that's you in your natural human capacity. That's recognized by your state government. Because your Bay is not recognized by the United States. They only recognize your all caps name because it's all based in corporate activities. Article 40, Indigenous peoples, time is it? 9:15. Ooh, time flies. I was trying to be done by 9:30. We might be able to get it done, and then we can open up for Q&A and discussion and such at around 9:30. Let's try to make that move. Article 40, Indigenous peoples have the right to access to and prompt. Indigenous peoples have the right to access to and prompt decisions through just and fair procedures for the resolution of conflicts and disputes with states or other parties, as well as to effective remedies for all infringements of their individual and collective rights. They cannot infringe upon our individual and collective rights. We have the right to that security. We have the right to that protection. Such a decision shall give due consideration to the customs, traditions, rules, and legal systems of the Indigenous peoples concerned and international human rights just cogents. I mean, it's clear as day, y'all. Article 41, the organs and specialized agencies of the United Nations, such as the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, right? These are the various United Nations organs. The organs and specialized agencies of the United Nations system and other intergovernmental organizations shall contribute to the full realization of the provisions of this declaration through the mobilization inter alia of financial cooperation and technical assistance. Inter alia again means etc. Ways and means of ensuring participation of Indigenous peoples on issues affecting them shall be established. Ways and means of ensuring participation of Indigenous peoples on issues affecting them shall be established. So we write legislation to let them know that and back it up with Article 41. I mean, the days of writs and affidavits are over with. It's now about judicial orders coming from where? Your competent consular court. And in that way, and in that way only, can we force decolonization through our competent consular jurisdiction, as long as it's being exercised. Period. International Court of Justices affirmed that in the case between France and the United States. In that way and in that way only. The United Nations, Article 42, the United Nations, its bodies, including the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. See that? So there's a permanent forum on Indigenous issues, and Indigenous issues are Moroccan issues, period. Well, there's other Indigenous peoples that may not necessarily be Moroccans, but and they also stand on these rights. And specialized agencies, including at the country level, and states shall promote respect for and full application of the provisions of this declaration and follow up the effectiveness of this declaration. I mean, they're all over them now. They're all over them. They're all over these colonizers. Article 43, but we are the ones who aren't all over them. So we have to use the documents that's all over these people and then double down on them with our legislation. More documents, more ink, more paper, more content that becomes law. And we don't do it with this anymore. We do it with this, right? Same difference, pen and paper. Or should I say ink and paper with words on it, to your advantage, to your benefit, for your protections, for your advancement. You don't leave it up to them to write legislation for you, i.e. minority. That's why you're called a minority, because you're over here begging them to write legislation for you, and you have the authority and the power and the capabilities to write legislation for yourself. Imagine a grown man asking another grown man to tie his shoelace because you ain't ever learned how to tie your shoelace. Article 44, all the rights and freedoms recognized herein, all the rights and freedoms recognized herein are equally guaranteed to male and female indigenous individuals. Self-explanatory. Article 45, nothing in this declaration may be construed as diminishing or extinguishing the rights indigenous peoples have now or may acquire in the future. Nothing, absolutely nothing in this declaration may be construed as diminishing or extinguishing the rights indigenous peoples have now or may acquire in the future, period. And finally, I believe this is the last one, Article 46, 1, nothing in this declaration, absolutely nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, people, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act contrary to the Charter of the United Nations or construed as authorizing or encouraging any action which would dismember or impair totally or in part the territorial integrity or political unity of sovereign and independent states. Let's make another point. 1906, Act of Algeciras, preamble. This is I'm gonna keep making the point clear. Where did they get their language from? Looking for the preamble. In the name of Almighty God, inspired by the interest attaching itself to the reign of order, peace, and prosperity in Morocco, and recognizing that the attainment thereof can only be effected by means of the introduction of reforms based upon the triple principle of sovereignty and independence, integrity of domains, economic liberty without any inequality, sovereignty and independence. Back to Article 46. Nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, people, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act contrary to the Charter of the United Nations or construed as authorizing or encouraging any action which would dismember or impair totally or in part the territorial integrity or political unity of sovereign and independent states. You get their language from the Act of Algeciras, and AMPAG, and New Mecca are sovereign and independent. The first box of the triple principles, sovereignty and independence, integrity of domains, economic liberty without any inequality, Sovereignty and independence, establishing your state government, integrity of domains, establishing your laws, economic liberty without any inequality, the colonizers paying their taxes. You're generating revenue from the taxes that they're supposed to be paying, that they have us paying. So what we're actually doing is trading places with them again, because they traded places with us. We're not supposed to be paying these taxes. They are the ones who are supposed to be paying these taxes. In order to get there, we must check our boxes, check the boxes from sovereignty and independence throughout till we get to integrity of economic liberty without any inequality. Can't skip the boxes. Nothing comes before the other, one thing at a time, sequential order, common sense. 2, in the exercise of the rights enunciated in the present declaration, human rights and fundamental freedoms of all shall be respected. The exercise of the right set forth in this declaration shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law and in accordance with international human rights obligations. Any such limitations shall be non-discriminatory and strictly necessary solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others and for meeting the just and most compelling requirements of a democratic society. 3, I think, and that's the final one. And 3, the provisions set forth in this declaration shall be interpreted in accordance with the principles of justice, democracy, respect for human rights, equality, non-discrimination, good governance, and good faith. Good faith meaning you must follow and abide by the provisions of not only this declaration, but all other international agreements, conventions, specifically your treaties. You must act on them in good faith, meaning follow the provisions and do as it's told. If you're the landlord, you're the landlord. If you're the tenant, you're the tenant. That means that the tenant owes the landlord rent. So in good faith, pay your taxes, pay your damn rent, and we'll get along just fine. But before we are able to force them into the position to pay their taxes and pay their rent, we must first come back to our competency of a competent Moorish government. In doing so, activating our consular court, and through consular court, issue to them ministerial decrees, judgment, opinions, and orders from consular court. And in that way only, can our Moroccan laws be made applicable against the United States and its citizens. The aim of our rights of indigenous peoples. So as you see, it's a decolonization document. Most of these documents are decolonization documents. The Act of Algeciras was a decolonization document. The world has been tired of the colonization and the colonists and the scourge of war that comes from such activity. World War I, World War II, Vietnam War, Korean War, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The mayhem going to and fro planet Earth, devouring nations. And by the way, guess who helps them with all this? Moors, the sleeping Moors. There is not a war or a battle that has not been successful. There's never been a successful campaign to go to war without the Moors, whether it be in a front line or it be in a position of authority, such as a commander, general, or whatever. Colin Powell. There's almost nothing that these people can do without us, including war. They've been using us as pawns since, 200 plus years, because we have been acquiescing, we have been sleeping, we have been thinking that we came from Africa, Kemet, some of which some people who don't even realize that Kemet is already here in Morocco. But they say that it's ancient America. No, brother, ancient America is Morocco. We didn't land on Planet Rock. Planet Rock landed on us. And when Planet Rock landed on us, this here was called Morocco. They mislabeled the people, Negro, blacks, colors, and they mislabeled the land, America. None of which is true. The land is not America. The people are not black. The land is Morocco, and the people are Moroccans. I yield the floor for any discussions, comments, concerns, critiques. The floor is open, y'all. Let's get into some discussion. Islam. Look at y'all. Y'all quiet over there. I done mesmerized y'all. I hope I ain't put y'all to sleep. Come on, who got what? Who got a question or concern?
This is Brother Shamu. Excellent teachings tonight, brother. Giving you props. I'm learning more and more every time I come on with these treaties. It's now fully evident and apparent that the Mors Palladium is the way and the only way that we defend and offend. You know, we use that word defend a lot because we feel like we're the defendant and we placed in that position a lot. But now, you know, we are, you know, the lords of the land, right? And now we go on the offense for the offenders, you know, and
Right.
so I appreciate you, you know, your teaching, how you just stop and go and you categorize that Article 11, Chapter 73, A, B, C through E. That's some powerful information for Moors who are looking to really establish a presence within the nations or among the nations, because it's basically, you know, telling you, you know, that they have to help you, right? But there's an old maxim that says, "You have not because you ask not," and a lot of time it's not because you're afraid to ask; it's because you lack the knowledge of asking the, you know, the proper questions, right? So, you know, just to keep it short tonight, I enjoyed that. I definitely will be going back, rereading, and hopefully the next time we come together, you know, my frequency will be tuned in a little bit better. Thank you, brother. Islam.
Islam, brother Shamu, I appreciate those kind words, brother. Yeah, Article 73 is very important because it allows Moors to understand that, you know, your independence from the United States doesn't mean that you're not able to take part in commerce within the United States, to include potentially losing whatever benefits that you might be getting from the United States, whether it be food stamps, public assistance of any kind, SSI checks, you know, retirement checks from whether it be the military or some corporation. It doesn't really matter. As you're going through your various stages of advancement, they are obligated to assist you as you go through as you're going through this journey. Keep in mind also that they're here based on the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. They are within our borders. They're not colonizing us from across the borders. Our battle is unique. They're inside of our borders. They had taken over our institutions. They have taken over our systems, right? And so in order for us to be able to survive as a people, we got to be able to utilize the same system that they took over, which is our system in the first place. So it's not the same as obtaining a charter or some sort of articles of incorporation from the Secretary of State, right? That process is an encumbering process, is a subjugated process. You're subjugated to them. We are sovereign and independent, totally separate and independent from the United States, yet at the same time utilizing the system that's already been in place for our commerce, for the well-being of ourselves and our families. Remembering that those systems were already in place when Plymouth Rock landed on us, right? And so until we get to the point of economic liberty without any inequality, the in-between point is being able to continue to partake in commerce, commercial activity for the well-being of yourself and your families. And the way to do that is to utilize the system that's already in place under the control, the limited control, the temporary control of the United States, etc. And so that's why Article 73 is so important, because we need to understand that, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of benefits or whatever you may be getting from the United States, you wouldn't lose it just because you became a national of AMPAG. So Islam, good brother, I appreciate you bringing that up, and thank you for that wonderful comment in the compliment. You're always here anyway, so thank you, brother Shamu. I thank you so much. I've been meaning to show you all this, right? R.V. Bay publication, Allodial American National. I thought I was an Allodial American National. It's an identification card, substantive birthrights, right? This was my nationality card from R.B. Bay Publications. That worked until it didn't work anymore. Not taxed. Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, treaties, right? So we're standing on Constitution, their Constitution, and then yet we mention at the end treaties. Okay, that's cool. You mentioned treaties. Which treaty? Because you used plural as if it's more than just one. Well, which are the other ones? Because the only ones that y'all be talking about is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. What's the others that you're talking about when you use this plural? It's not on here. And have you even read them? But see, now that we're going over international law documents and constructive agreements and such, we find that there's two other treaties aside from the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That's the Treaty of Madrid and the Act of Algeciras. I've never heard of any of those documents until the good brother Jay Bay pointed out to us in the AMPAG study sessions, which I encourage everybody to continue attending the AMPAG study sessions so that you can gain further erudition in these matters. He's an excellent teacher and he's very detailed in the teachings. This is a secondary platform for those who may be interested. But I would always encourage everyone to continue with their with the AMPAG study sessions that come out every week. I was just pointing this out, and this one doesn't have the United States banner flag. It has the Bunker Hill flag, like that's supposed to do something. It worked until it didn't work anymore. When it didn't work anymore, this is what he did. The cop. And all my written affidavits, threw him on the ground. I'll never forget the day. Pulled out his taser, told me to get out the car. So for 6 months, it was all good until it wasn't good anymore. We need something that's solid. We shouldn't have to stand our square on the documents and I'm trying to explain to you what this means. You should be able to, you should take this ID, go to your car, run it in the system. It comes back, leave them alone. You come back, here you go, sir, we apologize, you're free to go. There's nothing for me to say. There's no square for me to stand on. There's no special wording to use to not accept the jurisdiction. In fact, I don't say nothing. I let my emanating documents do all the talking. We're finishing up, we're going through our various stages of advancement. So we're finishing up and finalizing our state ID, our allodial certificate of live birth and such, and soon enough, it will be, when I say soon enough, in the next week or so, 2 weeks possibly, we will all have one of these. Come on, website. Come on, website. I don't know why it's slow. Brother Akeem, I don't know if you looked into that, but especially the state ID one, it tends to be pretty slow. This is what our state ID is looking like. We've already showed it before. Anyway, who else? Anyone else has any more comments, concerns, critiques, dialogue of any sort?
Islam 2034 is going to be a very interesting year. Do you feel as though the contract with the United States, do you feel as though it will be renewed come 2035, I believe, is when we would have to be at the table again?
Excellent question. Yeah, that's the date, that's the year when it's supposed to be, when the contract, the Treaty of Peace is supposed to be renewed. Your question is, do I think it will be renewed? Yeah, actually, I do think it will be renewed. From their perspective, where they gonna go?
Good point.
They ain't gonna go, they have nowhere to go. See, these colonizers that are operating the United States, they're stateless. They have nowhere to go. They are expatriates of Great Britain and other nations, other European nations. They all consolidated themselves into what's called the United States of America. They don't have nowhere to go. They're going to want to remain. And as far as we're concerned, I know there's a lot of pissed off Moors out there that feel a type of way. They feel some type of way about how the United States have been dealing with them in the past 200 years or so. But at the end of the day, we got to remember that whatever it is that they have put us through, we have put them through that in 10 times worse and for much, 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 much longer. So it really is a matter of letting bygones be bygones. We're even again. We got to operate or come into this in the spirit of love and not hate. Why am I saying all that? Because at the end of the day, we are the sovereigns, and we need worker bees. We need someone that's gonna. we need a labor force here. That's what the United States of America would represent to us. Keeping in mind that they would have to also shut down the United States. They would have to strike from the record the enactment of the Act of Congress of 1871. And they would have to consent back to the de jure United States of America, where now all human beings will be back to being actual humans again and not corporations, right? And they would be our workforce. The treaty of Peace and Friendship was between Morocco and the United States of America, not the United States International Organization or the United States Federal Corporation or the United States Municipal Corporation, which was established in 1871. It was between the United States of America and Morocco. So under and in the spirit of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, the goal is to keep them here, govern them with our legislation. But instead of things being how they are right now, the goal is to trade places and have them paying all the taxes that they were supposed to be paying in the first place. They are the ones we are the ones who are supposed to issue them licenses for guns and any and all types of weapons. We have the control over the banks. We have control over the taxes. We have control over the military. We have control over the police and all forms of law enforcement. We are the governors, the beys of Morocco. And with that understood, there's no need to kick them off the land. What are we kicking them off the land for? We need the worker. We need the workforce. These people, they don't want to do nothing more. People like to talk about how evil white people are and all this stuff. It's like, these people aren't evil, man. In my personal experiences, I have experienced worse from my own than white people. I've experienced white people doing you know, they've been quite righteous to me in so many ways. I've met a lot of righteous white people. So we got to understand, who are we talking about? Are we talking about the so-called elites who are running the government, or are we talking about the average citizen, the average people, your next door neighbor? Those people that are the average people, that your next door neighbors and such, they don't want any problems. They don't want no smoke. All they just want to be able to have a good paying job with good benefits and have security and safety in their homes. And that's what we're here to provide for them. And in doing so, they'll just continue to pay their taxes happily. They'll have enough money to pay the taxes. So that's a wonderful question. And I think that in the year 2034 is when you will find that that's where you would find the clock of destiny fully solidifying itself, in which everything is going to come back around to the Moors. The prophet said, one day the wheels of commerce will stop running, and when it comes back online, it will be in the favor of the Moors. And that's exactly what's going to happen starting next year, 2023, which equals 7, the number of completion. So Islam, Brother Charles, great question. I appreciate that question, brother. I hope I answered it for you. Did I?
Islam, yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam, Ra'il.
A question about the state ID. On
Yes,
the
sir.
back of it, does it have the barcode where they can scan?
That question is for Hakeem Bey. I don't think so, but Hakeem Bey, do we have a barcode on the back of it?
Currently, no. However, if we were to invest in the proper technology, we could not only get the barcode, but a QR code and or a chip or mag strip. However, mag strip is fading out because it's so easily hackable. But yeah, anything's possible with the right technology, but we'd have to invest in it.
Islam. Thank you, brother. Did that answer your question, brother Ra'il?
Yes, indeed.
Thank you, good brother. I appreciate
Islam.
you. Islam. That's our state ID right here. It's awesome. And it will be coming soon. In the next couple of weeks now. You know, the colonizers have done a good job of keeping us busy, distracted, and occupied over the past 100 years plus, right? And that's what we're dealing with right now in the state. No one is operating the state full-time. We're all doing it part-time and probably less than part-time. Why? Because we can't just stop working in our jobs, right? To run the government. We don't get paid for this stuff. We don't get paid for the government. You know, we don't charge for these classes. You can't go into the description section and find some donation button where you can cash at me something and cash app. We don't do. This is not what this is about. You know, there's only other than AMPAG and now AMPAG doing these sessions on YouTube. There's only 2 other brothers who's doing it, and now they're gearing up to start charging, which they've been charging $300 and all these things. And the egregious part is they ain't got no damn government. They ain't got nothing. They're just scragglers running their mouths and charging people for something that they themselves have not done. Us, on the other hand, we've checked the boxes. We've got the ratified, deposited, and promulgated Constitution. We've got the legislation in our books, and with more to come. We are working this stuff on a daily basis, and we don't charge for this. We assist. There's 2 other states coming online. I don't know if Brother Kill, are you on today? Brother Coleman, are you on today? Let me stop sharing so I can see who's on. Yeah, they're not on today. But Brother Kill out of Indiana and Brother Coleman out of Texas, they're 1 or 2 steps from each other, right? So the brother Kill out of Indiana, the name of his state is Maru State Republic, of their state, I should say. It's soon to come online. They had to redo their inauguration, but they've already done their inauguration. They had to redo it. Same thing we ended up having to do as well. And so once that's done, they'll be depositing and promulgating their ratified constitution with the United Nations. That's it. They're a state now. Now they'll have to start working on internal integrity of domain, establishing their laws, their national trust, etc. DMT, which is the brothers out of Texas, they're like 1 or 2 steps behind. So they're probably within a month, they'll also be online. My point in saying that is AMPAG has been assisting these 2 potential states, sister states coming online. We didn't charge them anything. AMPAG didn't charge us anything. AMPAG has given us 55-page documents, judicial orders, 33-page documents, judicial orders with more to come. Not $1 has been requested. We're all in this together. And we're all working this thing out for free. Don't get me wrong. There is an ulterior motive. There is an ulterior motive. What is that ulterior motive? Decolonization, economic liberty without any inequality. There's a big bag at the end of the road. There's a treasure chest at the end of that rainbow. We have to walk the path. We have to walk across the rainbow to get to that treasure chest. That walk is going to be a free walk, but when you get to the treasure chest, you're now gaining access to your vast estate. That's the ultimate goal. That's the reason why we're doing what we're doing. So I say all that to say, we're caught up in our jobs trying to maintain our living expenses and our well-being for ourselves and our families. And so in doing so, things are taking too long, longer than we would like for it to take. We're still working it out, but it's taking a little longer because no one is spending 100% of their time or working on the state full time. So, but the good brother Hakeem has been a wonderful help for us by establishing the state ID. Sister Story has been a wonderful help for us by establishing all the nationality paperwork, and so these things are coming when they come, and they will be coming very soon in the next, we just had a meeting today about it. So we're looking at 2 weeks before we'll have our state IDs issued out, our allodial certificates of live births issued out, our diplomatic bags issued out, our diplomatic cards for all the nationals, for all the officials issued out. So all those things are coming in the next 2 weeks. So in the next 2 weeks or so. So it's a lot of work, especially going through your various stages of advancement, just remembering and coming back into the knowledge of your ancient foremothers and forefathers. It takes time, and we're getting there. So, excuse me. Thankfully, the nationals and the officials have been patient with the process. No one is stressing anyone. If anyone is stressing anyone, it's me stressing everybody, but I can't even really do that because, again, I've got to be cognizant of the fact that we've got truck drivers, we've got all different types of occupations that it's not conducive to running the government. So we're doing the best that we can with what we've got. And based on that alone, I'm happy with the progress. I could only imagine what it would be like if no one was working, or if we all had the time to spend 100% of our time on the government. Oh my God, we'll be so further ahead. But nothing happens before it's time. The ancestors are behind this, and everything will happen in time, in the ancestors' time, not our time, because this operation has absolutely nothing to do with us. This operation is being ran and operated by the ancestors. And keep in mind that one of the people who make up the ancestors is Prophet Abu Ali. I yield the floor for any other questions, concerns. It's 9:55. I give you guys a couple more seconds or minutes to ask whatever questions you might have, or whatever comments. In the meantime, I'll continue building a little bit. So yes, we're not. it's not a matter of us coming down on any other Moors or any other so-called organization and such. It's a matter of getting our people to understand that if you do nothing else, at least just read the treaties. Read the Treaty of Madrid, 1880. It's only, what, 18 articles? It's not even long. Let's see, the Treaty of Madrid is 16, it's only 18 articles, exactly. It's not that long. The longest one is the Act of Algeciras. And the Act of Algeciras is the one that you will probably be most interested in. Why? Because it's giving you all types of authority. Let's look at it real quick. Gonna go to the preamble. The preamble tells you all the chapters. This earbud keeps falling out. If anyone got something, say something. But I'm just gonna read the. Where is it?
I was just want to say it's the Act of Algeciras. It definitely is a great place to, as far as legislation goes.
Indeed, it really is. You know, like it says here, Mr. Robert, his envoy extraordinary and minister plenipotentiary to his Catholic Majesty and his very faithful Majesty, who furnish with full power. So all these people that they mentioned prior to this point are all furnished with full powers, which were found in good and due form, have in conformity with the program upon which his Sharifian Majesty and the powers have agreed, successively discussed and adopted. 1, a declaration relative to the organization of the police. Why do we have problems with police brutality when we have authority over the police? 2, a regulation concerning the detection and repression of the contraband of arms. 3, an act of concession for a Moroccan state bank, not a Moorish American state bank, a Moroccan state bank. 4, a declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenues in Morocco. 5, a regulation concerning the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling. It's total controlling operation and governance of our empire or our land. 6, a declaration relative to public services and public works. And having decided that these different documents might usefully be coordinated in a single instrument, they have united them in a general act composed of the following articles. And this is where it starts. This is where it starts. So I'm just going over just the title of each chapter, because there is broken down into 6 chapters. The 7th chapter is your instructions, your general provision, right? A declaration relative to public services and public works. Public services is your government officials, your public works, and also like your firefighters, your law enforcement, or 911, that's your public services. And then your public works, your bridges, your streets, water, ducts, whatever, you know what I'm saying? This is, what you know what I mean? Like, this is we need to study this document. It's giving us back Morocco. It's giving us back the authority over the police, over the guns, over the Moroccan state government, the state banks, right? Over the banks, over the taxes and creation of new revenues, over any form of fraud and smuggling coming into our borders. And then a declaration dealing with your public services and your public works. Why are we studying and reading anything else? Is beyond me. There's nothing else to study. There's nothing else to examine. I don't care about their constitution and enforcing their constitution. Tell me about the Act of Algeciras. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about a declaration relative to the organization of the police. Let's talk about a regulation concerning the detection and repression of the contraband of arms. Let's talk about an act of concession for a Moroccan state bank. Let's talk about better returns of taxes and the creation of new revenues. Let's talk about the smuggling and the fraud taking place in our empire. Let's talk about the public services and public works. Why do I care about, what does it say here? Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. I don't care about that. I don't care. I don't care about what the United States got going on, other than the fact that they need to be adhering to what we order them to do, based on these 6 different declarations within the Act of Algeciras. But before you can enforce these 6 declarations, these 6 chapters, these different articles within the Act of Algeciras, before you do that, this is what you got to do first. Let's go back over there. This is what you got to do first. You must choose between the entire submission of the laws of the empire. This is a nationalization clause. That's a nationality clause. Let's read it again. Any subject of Morocco, remember, subject of Morocco means that you're under the authority of the empire. You're not subjugated in Morocco. You are a free Moor within the jurisdiction of your government, which at the time was a monarchy. That's why you are a subject of Morocco, because you're subject to the crown. Versus being a Moorish subject in America. That's a subjugated Moor within the jurisdiction of America under their laws. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco, unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the Moroccan government or a government of Morocco. Foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco, according to the rules established by the laws of each country, shall be continued to them as regards all its effects without any restrictions. We got to do that first. Paragraph 1 of the Article 15. Once we do that, then we can start talking about the Act of Algeciras. So you got the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, the Treaty of Madrid, and the Act of Algeciras. Sequential order. First, you must claim your nationality through your Moorish state government, so that now you can enforce Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5, and Chapter 6 of the Act of Algeciras. And in doing so, you have now established and reclaimed economic liberty without any inequality within Morocco, under your authority, under your jurisdiction, under your state flag and your state seal. But more importantly, that's per territory. So if we can establish state governments across, let's go to it, across Morocco, Northwest Morocco, because Morocco is the entire world, right? We're in Northwest Morocco, Morocco up the farthest west. Brazil, South Africa, South America is Southwest Morocco with the islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 50 different states that the United States is operating as. You got to take back each one of those. Form a treaty amongst us, a treaty alliance amongst us, amongst all our various interdependent states. And then once we form that treaty or enact that treaty, then together we enact a new friendly application, which would be called, which would be your constitution. For who? For what? The Empire of Morocco. You can't start with the empire. You got to start slowly but surely, little by little. The United States and the colonizers, they didn't start with the United States. They started with 13 colonies. And from there, it gave birth to the federal United States. We got to do the same thing. One at a time. The prophet said, he will leave the Europeans here long enough to teach us how to run government. This is how we run it. This is how we establish or reestablish the central government of Morocco. And it does not require 1 million people. What's required are the proper, competent Moors who have covered the proper positions in each within your government. What are the proper positions? Well, to get started, anyone who might be interested, 5 positions. 1 legislative branch member, 1 head of state, 1 judicial branch member, chief judge, your minister of foreign affairs, who deals with relations amongst other nationals and other foreign states. And then you need your consul general, which is your attorney general. Those are your main 5. That's all you need to establish a competent state government. Everyone else will come after. Thereafter, you'll have your sutra, your minister of defense, your razums, your qadis, etc. You know, but to get this thing going, to get the ball rolling, you don't need 1 million people. You really can get started with 5 competent people. The Montevideo Convention of 1933 does not define a number as your permanent population. It just says a permanent population. Keeping in mind that being that we have took over through our Utipazanetas jurisdiction and our longitude latitude, we have taken over Georgia, so-called Georgia, the trust territory of Georgia. How many people are in Georgia? That's our permanent population. What is it, like 5 million people in Georgia? That's our permanent population. Because just as well as the corporate state of Georgia falls under the jurisdiction of AMPAG, so does all their citizens. We're responsible for all these people. But it gets started with 5 people. We started with like, what, 7 people? Now we're up to about 30. But that's just within AMPAG, but outside of AMPAG, in the trust territory of Georgia, we've got 5 million people. It's not that difficult. This is actually easier than you would think. If there's anything that's complicated is putting together these judicial documents. And you don't even have to burn up brain cells doing that, because Jay Bay already did all that. You just take the documents, reword them, and send them off. Copy and paste. It's a duplicatable and transferable process that we're undertaking here. Whatever he's done, we have done, and New Mecca has done, and then what AMPAG has done, Meru State Republic is doing, and DIPT is doing. Now, outside of that, Meru and DIPT will be assisting other Moors to do the same thing. It is transferable, right? It's duplicatable. That keeps Jay Bay from being some leader guy, one leader guy, and instead it allows the process, or really it allows Jay Bay to grow tentacles in this process, to where all of us are now doing the same damn thing. Everybody's doing the same damn thing, using the same boilerplate documents to say the United States do it. The same boilerplate documents, the same templates. You just change your seal, you change your name, but it's all this, everything uniform, everything in conformity with one another. Some scary stuff for these colonizers. Some scary stuff. They don't want to see that. Islam, so it's 10 o'clock, 10:08. I mean, it's time for me to close out the call now. Is there any other concerns or comments?
Yes, Islam.
Islam.
Do we have to enact legislation to be exempt from building permits and building inspectors taxes?
You would, wherever there's a concern, legislation is the key. Wherever there's a concern, legislation is the key. We will be having, we had a meeting last Tuesday, speaking about these taxes and things and employment issues and such. But it was only with the bill draft committee. We've got to do one for all of us together combined, because we got to go over the so-called labor issues and the so-called tax issues. So we'll be doing that probably Thursday. Actually, not probably. We'll be doing that Tuesday. Tuesdays are now our other government meeting. So Brother Rayo, be on there so we can discuss that further.
Islam.
Same as you, Brother Amir, and everyone else who yeah. Wednesdays, we no longer have Wild Wednesdays for classes of any sort. Wednesdays now is reserved for open public meetings where, you know, you can bring guests and, you know, it's an open meeting for everyone. So that's what we'll be doing on Wednesdays now from here on out. And treaty classes on Sunday will continue on. And on Tuesdays, we'll have our government meetings. Every other Tuesday, we'll have government meetings. And then the other Tuesdays, we will be having the roundtable for our bill draft committee, so that we can stay on the pulse and stay on top of our legislation and the enactment of our laws. And Brother Fahim, are you available Sunday?
Yes, I am.
Islam. We're gonna try to get your oath of, we just spoke about it today at 7 o'clock. We'll be trying to get your oath of office, done that particular day.
Islam.
Anything else, you all? All right. Okay. If there's nothing else, oops, let me close this out. I was looking at the chat. If there's nothing else, well, this was another great class. I appreciate you all showing up. Next week, I'm not sure which one we'll do. We'll probably do Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations or Diplomatic Immunities, or maybe even the law of treaties. I never know in a week in advance. I'll let you all know in the chat between now and then. In the meantime, I thank you for your attendance. I appreciate you, all those at home. Continue to follow us. Also follow AMPAG, the AMPAG study sessions on YouTube. Very important for you to do so if you want to check, if you are interested in checking these boxes and learning about international law and statehood. Sounds like someone got something else. I'm hearing something. Someone else got something? All right, I guess not. I'm hearing things. All right, well, with that said, we're gonna call it a night for the night. And to all of you, I will say, may Allah make continuous blessings on you all tonight and for the rest of your lives. Peace, love, and light, and we'll talk next week. Islam.
Islam.
Islam, Islam. Thank you all. Peace and love.
Islam.
Islam. Peace and love.